What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to NBA Weekly. As always, I'm your host, P with the Plug, one footer through the wire, number one Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All. In today's video, we're doing the winners and losers of the NBA draft. Obviously, we're a few days removed, which I think is always the best thing to do when you're reviewing something that happened. When things happen in a moment, you can emotionally have opinions and things that you don't really fully understand or sit with. So to be a few days removed from the draft is good for me to really dive into the winners and losers with y'all. And a couple of things I do want to say before we start. I had an interesting conversation on the Twitter Spaces, and me and the guy were basically saying how we both felt like there weren't many losers with a draft class like this, and I felt the same exact way and agreed with them 1,000%. So I wanted to put that out here in the intro of this before we really dive in. What a draft class as loaded as this was, with not only just talent but role players, potential role players. I think this is a draft where a lot of teams were able to come in and get exactly what they wanted / needed, and it's going to be hard to see who is losers right now. Now, years down the line, whether it's next year, 2 years, 3 years from now, with hindsight, and you see how certain guys develop and what they actually become, will then be 10 times easier to say, well, that team is a loser because they should have did this. He was still available there. They let him fall here. They took him too early. But as of right now, with as much talent as there was, and as much guys who can potentially be role players, and any of y'all who know me know that my ideology is that the majority of the NBA is role players. If we're just being honest, there's a small portion of guys who are the legitimate number one, I can be the very best player on a championship team. In my opinion, I think a lot of it is really guys who are playing second fiddle, Robin to Batman, so to speak, and then complementary stars, and then the rest are just role players who are 3-and-D. I'm here to rebound. I'm here to initiate offense and facilitate. There's guys that play roles that complement the star, or the face, I would say. So I think that's a big thing to put out there. But initially for me, I'll say one of the biggest and obvious winners is the Houston Rockets. When we talk about the year that they had last year, obviously the trade and everything that went down with James Harden after flipping Russell Westbrook to Washington for John Wall. The Harden trade was a bit of a disappointment for a person like me. I understand getting draft capital and things like that, but I think when you're giving up an MVP caliber superstar player like James Harden, I'm not always amused with just picks. I always look for some type of concrete talent that's already there and established in some sort of way, and then draft capital. And I think you get the best of both worlds, to where you can get somebody who's already proven, and then you also get the capital to go and find talent that you think will pan out to be something in the league. That's why I always circle back to like the Thunder's draft package that they got for Paul George, where you got Shea, who was already established. He didn't have a 20-point scoring season or anything like that, but when anybody who watched the Clippers from that year saw a lot of bright spots in Shea, including the playoff game against the Golden State Warriors. They got that plus picks. So for the Houston Rockets to trade James Harden and to not get Karis LeVert, who ultimately went to the Pacers. They didn't get Jared Allen from Brooklyn. He ultimately went to the Cavs. But instead, they got draft capital, and then the highlight was Victor Oladipo. They got Dante Exum and some other stuff, but the highlight was really Victor Oladipo and draft capital. And then Victor Oladipo, ultimately, as we know, a little bit later got shipped to the Miami Heat. So ultimately, you got draft capital, which is always another thing because it's harder to sell to a fan base. A fan base who has a guy in his own era. Like James Harden with the Rockets was an era. They had a lot of success. That's he leveled up and became an MVP, perennial all-star, superstar in this league with the Rockets. They went to Western Conference Finals together. They had almost tasted champagne of potentially playing in the NBA Finals. So for you guys, for a franchise to trade that caliber of a player and to receive nothing to show for it immediately is always hard and such a big blow to a fan base. So for them to go through that, but then you get to the draft and you get Jalen Green, you get Alperen Şengün, you get Usman Garuba, and then you also get Josh Christopher, plus they had got Kevin Porter Jr. at some point in that trade. You had signed Christian Wood. I now think that they have something nice and fun with Houston that they can put out at the start of next year. Will they be very good? Probably not, but I think they will be fun to sell to a fan base while you're putting the rest of while you're putting this rebuild together over the next few years. It's a lot of young, exciting talent. One thing to be young talent, but they're exciting, and I think they will have some stretches where they're extremely exciting to watch. Jayshawn Tate made like an all-rookie second team or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. He's a part of that core as well. John Wall is still there, but I think even John Wall, depending on what they do with Route, I'm not really sure if they'll buy him out, if he's going to stay or whatever. But even if he did stay, I could see him also still being a part of that. Like, he can play fast and with those guys and get up and down and everything. Now, how much would John Wall be willing to accept the fact that this is not about him? Because I know he still has a lot to prove, and he wants to show that he should be, taken serious and be considered to play on a playoff contending team. So I'm sure he would want to take a lot of shots and to show that he still has a lot left in the tank. Houston probably is going to want Jalen Green, Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr. They're going to want a lot of those guys to take, majority of the shots and have majority of the spotlight. So that may be some conflict of interest between John Wall and that young core. But as far as play style, playing, getting up and down, scoring a lot of points, running fast, dunks, alley-oops, and things like that, which I think this young team has to offer, I think he could fit that mold. Now, when we go draft pick by pick, Jalen Green is obviously the second overall pick in the draft for a reason. There's an extreme amount of upside there. He's very young, proven that he can be a tough shot maker at the G League level. Now, I will say, like I said in previous videos, I do respect the G League route, and I think there's some value there. But I do think at times it can be overvalued just because it gets talked about as if they're playing against legitimate NBA competition, grown men. But in reality, they're kind of playing against a lot of people who aren't really good enough to be in the NBA right now, whether that's prematurely or post-career type status. But like Amir Johnson, Jared Jack, they aren't your typical NBA current players now. And then even like the Nico Mannions of the world, they are currently not good enough to play in the NBA. So how much do I value them playing in a G League against that type of competition? I don't know. I may rather watch you play against your actual peers who is going to go into the NBA with you, just personally. But you get Jalen Green, who showed he's a tough shot maker, all the athleticism. He's still a young kid who's going to grow into his body and fill out his frame. I think he could be a guy that's going to be an extremely exciting rookie because he's going to be able to fill it up if they allow him to shoot the ball as much as he can and will. He'd be kind of like Anthony Edwards. Not so much in how they play, because I think Anthony Edwards is more physically mature than him at this stage, but just the high scoring numbers out the gate. I think if there is any rookie that I would put money on is to have a 40-point game in that first year, it would have to be Jalen Green to me. And I think already with the offensive tools and skill set, along with his body maturing over the next few years, learning the NBA game, continue to add to his skill set and getting easier buckets and transition, I think he's going to be very nice for them. Alperen Sengun, who they traded to get OKC's pick, to get him at 16, I think he's one of the best offensive, if not the best offensive big man in the draft. As of day one, this is the guy who won the Turkish League MVP. Outstanding footwork, back to the basket. I think he's going to project to be a good three-point shooter over the years of growing out his game, because he's already shown that he can hit some in the Turkish League. Pick and roll play, passing. The only thing there is that he's a bit undersized at 6'9". Curious to see how he's going to rim protect and hold it down defensively. But I think on the offensive side of the basketball, he's extremely polished for his age, and he's only going to get better with time. So I think that was a nice trade and smart pickup for them to add to this team. And then after him, they get the exact opposite with Usman Garuba. He is a defensive guy who is going to be extremely defensive ready coming out the gate, opposite of Sengun. So Sengun's offense, Garuba has all of the defense. He's maybe the best defensive guy in this draft as far as day one. He's going to be all over the court, be a menace, and to get both of them that even each other out, it's perfect. It's a perfect marriage, especially when you also throw in Christian Wood into that front court mix. And then last but not least, Josh Christopher, another extremely upside scorer. Guy who's going to take some tough shots, can maybe frustrating, high low percentage shots, but he can make them. And if he continues to hone in on his skills with NBA spacing, better talent around him versus the college level, those tough shots may become more easier, may just be one-on-one looks instead of 3 levels of defense, and he may be even better. So I think all of those guys to that young core is extremely exciting. I think that the fact that they're going to be able to give them opportunity and playing time from day one is going to only help them more. And I think the more and more they add to that core, the more dangerous they'll be. That's a team that I'm watching very closely for the next couple of years. Because if they're as bad as I think they'll be next year, that only means another high-end lottery pick plus all of the picks they got from the trades and whatnot. They're going to have a nice young core, and I think this is the way to rebuild, right? Is to get as much young talent as you can and to let them all loose and get opportunity to run with each other and grow in front of your fan base, day by day. So the Houston Rockets are definitely a big winner. A loser that I want to talk about for me is one of the biggest losers. Like, I don't know how many losers I'm going to have in this video, but they are a loser that I have to talk about, and it's the Sacramento Kings. At 9, the Davion Mitchell pick is just the biggest head scratcher that I've seen in a very long time. De'Aaron Fox is no superstar or anything yet. Potentially he can be, but he's been a very, very good, stable centerpiece for the Kings. He's been the breath of fresh air for them that have even made them anything close to relevant over the last few years. And I think a good thing happened last year where Tyrese Halliburton kind of fell in their laps at 12, and he really complimented De'Aaron Fox. And for a nice portion of last season, they look like a competitive ball club. The Marvin Bagley situation it just isn't working. Obviously, you lose Bogdanovic for nothing. Buddy Hield is probably going to get traded. Apparently, they were blindsided by the Lakers with them going to do the trade with the Wizards instead of them getting Kyle Kuzma and whatnot for Buddy Hield. They're probably going to lose Rashawn Holmes to free agency. I really wanted to see them make a legitimate good pick and to continue to add on what they did last year with Tyrese Halliburton. They really let me down with the Davion Mitchell pick, man. To draft a guy at the position of your centerpiece is like head scratching, because there's no way that they're convinced that De'Aaron Fox is a shooting guard. And there's no way that they're drafting a 23-year-old NBA-ready point guard to be a backup with a top 10 pick. Now, I talked about all pre-draft process, how I was very reluctant to see them get upside because I just personally think the Sacramento Kings don't do very well with developing upside talent. And I wanted them to be able to get somebody like Franz Wagner out of Michigan, who was taken right before them. But even with him being taken, there were still other avenues and routes for them to go that would have made much more sense than Davion Mitchell. And again, this isn't a testament to talk down or to knock Davion Mitchell, because I think he is going to be a good player and have a good career. But it's just about making sense of things. The pick just didn't make sense. And I'm all for drafting at a position or just getting talent. But I can't say that Davion Mitchell was the best talent available. And in this instant, I wouldn't want to draft with a top 10 pick at a position that my legitimate centerpiece plays. De'Aaron Fox is your legitimate centerpiece. He's the heart and soul, the engine, everything of this team is him. So you might want to put some players together that can play with him versus players that would back him up. I think you can go out in free agency and sign somebody to back up De'Aaron Fox versus a player, that's going to cost you a top 10 pick. And I'd much rather have seen them take upside in this position versus taking Davion Mitchell. Go get, Book Knight. You know what I'm saying? Moody, Zaire Williams went early. I don't know. You take Şengün, something. But I wasn't a fan of the Davion Mitchell pick. And for all of the reasons I named, they have to be losers. They have to be big time losers, because it just ultimately didn't make sense in any type of aspect. And I think the last thing you want to do is to make a pick that doesn't make sense. I think that's the first thing. Like drafting, there's a lot of different ways you can go about drafting, whether you want to go upside, whether you want to go ready now, whether you care if you have a guy at that position, if it's needed, whatever. But like ultimately, I think it's very crazy to make a draft pick that people look at each other and say that ultimately didn't make any sense. And that's a consensus reaction that a lot of us are giving to that pick, which again isn't attached to Davion Mitchell, but it's just attached to the Kings and their decision making during the draft, which we have yet seen again. So they have to definitely be a loser for me. Another quick loser I want to talk about is the Mavericks. The Mavericks are a loser even though they didn't make a pick, because I felt like this was a draft where a lot of teams were so trade heavy, where they wanted to move back or they didn't want to bring in X amount of rookies, like the Thunder. The Thunder had a lot of picks that they didn't want to use. You saw the Knicks were moving around and doing different things. There was a lot of teams who were doing that, and it was disappointing to not see the Mavericks at least attempt to get at least an early second round pick or something. Because I feel like, again, this is a loaded draft as far as talent and potential role players. And for a team like Dallas, who needs some roles to be fulfilled, it would have been nice to see them take a shot at trying to get into here some way or another. And I know Maverick fans will have a bunch of different excuses and reasons why or whatnot, but I don't think it would have cost them that much to get in the second round. Even though you saw the Bulls, at 38 or 36 got Ayo. And I think he can be somebody that can come in and do something for them. Even like it doesn't always have to be a first round lottery pick or right outside the lottery, but in the first, early second, it would have been nice to see the Mavericks do something there. So for that, I have them as a loser. Another winner has to be the Hornets. Just like last year with the Kings, Halliburton kind of fall in their lap. One of the best scorers in this draft, James Bouknight, kind of fell in the Hornets' lap. Didn't expect him to get past 9 or 10, to be honest with you. So for that to happen was extremely exciting for them. And then also for them to get the guy that I was projecting them to go with their 11th pick, Kai Jones. They made a trade and was able to get back another first-round pick and got Kai Jones. And even in the second round to get JT Thor. You know what I mean? Like, they really have a nice young draft class that I think has a little bit of everything. They have some need, they have some potential, they have some upside, and I think they did a really good job of hitting it on the head as far as everything. That was a very good versatile draft class that they're bringing in, and it's something brewing there in the Hornets. The Hornets little organization. I like what's going on. Now the Malik Monk situation where they're not extending him anything. That was a little surprising. But yeah, they're bringing in JT Thor, and Scotty Lewis is also who they got. They also got Scotty Lewis. So that was the name I had to go check and see. So Scotty Lewis. But yeah, they're not bringing back Malik Monk or anything. I wish they would have did that because I think he has some value even if you want to trade him. But you're bringing in Bouknight, so I truly understand that. But I think the Hornets were a low-key winner. I like the Magic draft class. They're kind of 50-50, right in between winner and loser. And I say that just because Jalen Suggs was a big win for them to fall in his lap, even though they have a heavy amount of guards. But again, I don't think any of their guards are that significant to stop you from drafting at their position. But I will say, as much as I like Franz Wagner, I don't know how much I like the Magic potentially missing out on bringing in a backcourt of Jalen Suggs and Bouknight. Bouknight at 8 after getting Suggs at 5, I think would have been a very, very, very good draft. Because I think that 2 spot is a real big hole for them. I know they have a lot of guards, combo guards and whatnot, but I don't think they really have a defined shooting guard on that roster for this young core. They have front court with Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac, Chuma Okeke, now Franz Wagner. They have guards with Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, R.J. Hampton, and now Jalen Suggs. But as far as secure, legitimate shooting guards, they don't have any. And the ones that they do have are veterans that are going to be expandable and looked at to be moved to contenders for future assets. So it would have been nice to see them bring in a legitimate shooting guard like Bouknight and gave him a green light in the backcourt with Jalen Suggs and let them grow together for the future. Because I look at R.J. Hampton and he's like a combo guard. I don't know if right now he's your legitimate starting shooting guard. Cole Anthony, he's a scoring 1, but he's not a guy that you're probably going to put at the shooting guard position. Markelle Fultz definitely is in a shooting guard. And then Jalen Suggs, he's looked at as a combo guard, but I think you would kind of prefer him to control the one for you. So I definitely think they missed an opportunity there. Josh Primo on the Spurs. You know, I have to talk about Josh Primo on the Spurs. I am a fan of when teams do this. I wasn't a fan long ago, but after Cam Johnson was taken 11th and we've seen what he's done with the Suns, I don't really judge people anymore, because if you really are sold on somebody and you love a prospect, I think that you should get them whenever you desire to have them. You know, because what a lot of fans don't really understand about the draft process and being in a war room is that there is a lot of chatter, intel, and noise going on. So when you have a team like the Spurs, it's so easy for people at home to be like, why would they take Josh Primo at 12? They could have just traded back and got him. But that's a risk the Spurs maybe had intel knowing that they couldn't take. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know all of the chatter amongst all GMs and scouts and everybody who's watched the combine and had private workouts and everything. Obviously, Josh Primo going at 12 means that he was having great workouts, especially with the Spurs. But I think it's very easy for at-home GMs on the couch to say you should have just traded down, because it just doesn't work that easy. You could trade that. They could have traded down. I heard somebody say, man, they could have traded with the Knicks, because the Knicks obviously wanted to get into the lottery. But let's hypothetically say the Spurs do trade for 19 and 21 so that the Knicks can have 12. Well, now what if Josh Primo is taken at 15 or 16 and now he's gone and you don't get the guy that you love? I think it's important to understand that part of the draft as well. And I think a lot of people kind of missed out on that thought process, which is disappointing. Again, a lot of winners, not that many losers. But ultimately, I think this was a good draft class that we all should be excited about. We're going to do more draft videos coming soon. I'll be answering y'all questions about your favorite prospects, your teams, and what they did, and then also free agency. So sit back and get ready for more NBA Weekly coming soon. As always, your host, Pee Wee the Plug. I'm out. Peace.